I ghosted the love of my life because he abandoned me with his child to go on a road trip with a random woman. Before I met the love of my life, I made a firm and resolute decision this would be my final attempt at dating anyone. If it didn't work out, I was prepared to embrace a life on my own, without the need for a romantic partner. Over the years, I had built a life that brought me happiness, and I didn't need anyone else to feel complete. I was whole on my own. Yet, despite my contentment, there was a quiet yearning to share the good things in life with someone special. It wasn't about filling a void or seeking completion. It was simply the desire to have someone by my side to share in the joys and challenges of life. After spending 3 years single, focusing on myself and my children, I finally decided to start dating again. The first man who made it past the initial talking stage was too busy, and things fizzled out quickly. Then I met James. Our first conversation was brief, and we fell out of touch for over a month. But when we reconnected last November, it felt like a spark had been reignited. From that moment on, we rarely went a day without talking. We would spend hours on FaceTime sharing details about our lives, discussing our hopes and dreams, and bonding over our shared experiences as single parents of neurodivergent children. The connection between us was immediate and deep. We had so much in common, and our shared understanding of the challenges that come with raising neurodivergent children only strengthened our bond. From the very beginning, James and I maintained a level of open and honest communication that felt rare and special. Up until recently, it felt like we were building something solid, something real. My children and my family quickly grew to love him. His son fit seamlessly into our lives, and it felt like we were on the path to creating a blended family that would stand the test of time. It wasn't just about our romantic relationship. It was about building a future together that included our children. Everything seemed to be falling into place. James was attentive and thoughtful in ways that made me feel truly valued. He often expressed how much he loved and appreciated me. He would cook dinner for me, clean up afterward, and never hesitated to offer comfort whenever I needed it. Our conversations were meaningful, and he always listened to me with genuine interest and empathy. I never felt dismissed or belittled. Instead, I felt supported, cherished, and safe. It was a relationship built on mutual respect and love. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that this could be something lasting, something that would endure. Not so. When James suddenly told me he was planning to drive to New York City to pick up a friend from the UK, a friend I had never even heard of, and then embark on a months-long road trip with her, culminating in him moving to the UK for schooling, I was utterly blindsided. It was late at night, and we were in my car, driving to his parents' house in a secluded area to pick up some tools to assemble furniture for my home. Out of nowhere, he dropped this bombshell on me. I was so shocked that I essentially shut down. The only response I could muster was that he needed to do what was right for him, and I needed to do what was right for me. But in my mind, I had already decided that our relationship was over. I shifted into survival mode. My immediate priority became getting through the next few days, after which I planned to gradually distance myself from him. My intention was to slowly fade out of his life while he went on his little road trip with this woman I had never even heard of before. Once he officially left, I planned to block him on every platform and move on with my life, focusing on myself and my children, and trying to heal from the shock of it all. But those next 2 days were excruciating. He kept talking about his plans as if I should be excited for him, and the more he talked, the more upset I became. The entire situation felt like a slap in the face. He kept insisting that he needed to do this because he had a deep desire to explore the world and have new experiences, which I could understand on some level. But the way he was going about it was completely irresponsible. We're both single parents, and it's not practical or responsible to abandon your child to go on a leisurely road trip for personal fulfillment. We have children who depend on us, children who rely on us to be there for them. The fact that he was willing to leave his son behind to embark on this self-indulgent adventure was deeply troubling to me. It seemed selfish and immature, and it completely shattered the image I had of him as a devoted father and partner. When he tried to assure me that this wasn't about pursuing other relationships, I felt even more disheartened. In my experience, when someone feels the need to clarify that, it often suggests that they're trying to convince themselves as much as you. The idea that he would be off on this trip, having these significant life experiences with a woman I had never even heard of, while leaving behind his son and me, was too much to bear. It felt like a profound betrayal, not just of our relationship, but of the family bond we had been building together. What made the situation even more difficult was the realization that I wasn't heartbroken in the traditional sense. I shed a few tears for about 5 minutes when I was alone, but after that, all I felt was a deep sense of anger and disappointment. I couldn't comprehend how he thought he could make such a monumental decision, one that would affect not just our relationship, but the lives of our children, without even considering my feelings or the long-term consequences. Did he really believe that I would simply go along with it, that I would smile and nod as if this whole situation wasn't completely irrational? He kept trying to reassure me that he would fly back from the UK every few months to visit, as if that would somehow make everything okay. As if it were normal for the person you're dating to leave you and your children, to abandon his own child, to go on a road trip with someone you've never heard of, and then move to another country with her for an indefinite amount of time. The more he talked, the more I realized how out of touch with reality he seemed. I kept thinking, what in the world is he thinking? I was beyond ready to move on from him, but the anger wouldn't subside. I was frustrated. I couldn't get over how intensely I felt. It wasn't just about the end of our relationship. It was the sheer audacity of his actions. The fact that I had ever let him into my life, into my children's lives, was deeply upsetting. The fact that he had ever been a part of our world felt like an affront to everything I had worked so hard to build. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces and deal with the fallout. My children are going to be devastated when they realize they won't get to see James or his son anymore. They had grown to adore him, and I loved his son as if he were my own. The thought of never seeing that sweet little boy again is heartbreaking. Why did he have to make such a careless decision? Why did he have to jeopardize something that was so good, so promising? He left for New York City the day before yesterday, and he had the nerve to send me a screenshot of where he was on his trip. My response was simple, a gif of David Rose saying take care while shutting the door and rolling his eyes. That was the best I could do to convey how done I was with him. But even now, the frustration still lingers beneath the surface. It's like an unresolved tension that won't dissipate no matter how much time passes. I'm trying to move forward, but it's difficult when the sense of betrayal and the loss of what could have been keeps resurfacing. I keep replaying everything in my mind, trying to understand how someone who seemed so committed and caring could make such a sudden and thoughtless choice. It feels like a complete disconnect between the person I thought he was and the person he turned out to be. All I can do now is focus on myself and my children, to continue building the life that brings us happiness and peace, and to remember that I don't need anyone else to feel complete. But that doesn't erase the pain of what's been lost, or the sadness of knowing that the future I envisioned with him will never come to pass. In the days that followed his departure, the reality of the situation settled in deeper, and with it came an even greater clarity about the magnitude of what had happened. My mind kept circling back to the conversations we'd had about our future together, how we talked about blending our families, about the life we could build, a life that seemed so within reach. James had been a constant presence in our lives, and my children had grown to rely on him being there. We had established routines, shared responsibilities, and created memories that I thought would be the foundation of something enduring. But now all of that was gone. The idea of blending our families, of building a future together, was shattered. And the hardest part was explaining this to my children, who were too young to understand why someone they cared about so deeply had suddenly disappeared from their lives. Each time I thought about the moments we had shared, the plans we had made, I felt a deep sense of loss. It wasn't just the loss of James as a partner. It was the loss of a future that I had believed in, a future that had seemed so possible. I had let him into my life, into my children's lives, and now I had to figure out how to fill the void his absence created. It was more than just missing his presence. It was missing the sense of stability and companionship he had brought into our home. I had to grapple with the fact that someone who had seemed so committed could so easily walk away, not just from me, but from the family we were trying to create. In the end, what hurt the most wasn't that James chose to leave, but the way in which he did it. The suddenness, the lack of consideration for the impact it would have on our lives, the ease with which he seemed to dismiss the significance of what we had built together. It made me question everything I thought I knew about him, about us. It made me wonder if I had been living in a fantasy, seeing what I wanted to see rather than what was really there. But despite all of this, I know I'm strong enough to move on. I know that I can rebuild, that I can find happiness again, not because I need someone else to complete me, but because I'm capable of creating a life that is full and rich on my own as I look to the future. I am determined to focus on the things that bring me joy, the things that matter most to my children,